Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We're going to look again at the Kabbalah of Purpose, why we're here. And tonight we're going to look at the question, is purpose actually a positive influence? Are you actually a better person if you have purpose? Or could it be the other way? Could it be that we're better off without a purpose? In some of the recent literature, there's a popular genre of books now, the more militant atheism, where people who are atheists are not just saying that I'm an atheist, but they're trying to spread atheism, missionize their atheism. So one of the arguments that they make against religion, generally all religion, is this idea of purpose. And that in fact purpose is not a positive influence in the world, it's a negative influence. The idea that there's a purpose to life has actually made people worse, not better. Why? Why would having a purpose make you a worse person? Surely a purposeful being is a better person. No? How could you be a worse person by having purpose? So one argument that is put forth is that the very word purpose indicates that it's not about the here and now. We're not here to live for this world, for this lifetime, for where we are, for the people around us. We're here for a purpose, which is some other purpose, a purpose that's outside of ourselves. And therefore, having a purpose means making this world and our surroundings secondary, and our purpose is primary. That our focus is elsewhere. And if your focus is elsewhere, so then you are free to ignore the people around you, the things that are going on around you, because your purpose is higher. You don't have to make the world better, because it's not about this world. It's about some other world. We're going somewhere else. And this world, whether it's a big flop or not, doesn't really matter, because this is not our purpose. Our purpose is elsewhere. And so, the argument goes, having a purpose, any purpose that is higher, that is any purpose that's outside of me, just myself, is going to be a negative influence on my morality. You're going to be a worse person because of it. You're not going to be as good. Whereas, if your purpose is nothing, no purpose, there is no purpose, we're not going anywhere. We weren't put here for a reason, we're not going anywhere after we're here. There's nothing other than the life that you have right now, and there is no purpose to it. So then, you're going to have to be good. Make it good. Because there's nothing else. There's nowhere else to go. There's no other escape. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's just the tunnel and that's it. Where you are is all there is. And so surely, the argument suggests, we should forget about purpose, forget about any higher reality, throw away the concept that this world is heading towards another world. This is all there is, the here and now. Take it or leave it. What you see is what you get. And live a life for now, not for tomorrow. Or in the words of the great John Lennon, that if there's only sky above us, nothing else. There's no heaven. There's no other world. So then, imagine all the people living for today. How much better we'd be. Compelling arguments?
Yeah.
Yeah? No? Bit of both. Bit of purpose, bit of not purpose. Bit of the next world, bit not the next world. If they're both, good.
It's not mutually exclusive.
But purpose is the reality.
By having a purpose, it doesn't necessarily exclude that we won't make the here and now a better place. They're saying it's mutually exclusive. It's not mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. And I think Judaism is an example, because a lot of the tenets of Judaism, yes, there's a recognition of another life, Yom Haba or whatever, but your passage there, or your ticket to the, if you like, is judged on how you behave here and now.
Okay. But doesn't it somehow lessen your respect for this world, knowing there's another world? And that world's the ultimate place, and this is just a temporary one? doesn't that somehow take away the importance, the urgency of this world, of the here and now, of today, because there's an eternity tomorrow. So don't get too hooked on the world as it is now, because it's not going to last all that long.
Possible.
So,
Well, the world is not like one big airport. You're not going somewhere only when you bought a ticket. So it's, it's just very simplistic way of looking at things.
okay. So you got to buy a ticket. So what you're saying is that, sure, there's a heaven, and that's where we go, but to get there, you've got to be good in this world, like you said earlier. And so, therefore, heaven is an impetus to be better in this world. But is that as good as a person who says, I'm not going to heaven, and I'm going to be good because you should be good, not for my own reward? In fact, who's more moral? A person who says, I'm not going anywhere. When I finish in this world, I'm finished. The lights are out. That's it. And I'm not getting anything, no reward. There's no judge up there that's going to give me reward for what I've done. But I'm going to be good because you've got to be good in this world. Because this is all there is.
But why
Is that person better? Or a person who says, you know what, this world is short, the next world is eternal, so fine, I'll be good. I'll behave myself for a few years down here because I'll get eternity of pleasure and reward. That's a better person than the first one, who's being good just because this is it.
But why
Who
would
really
that
thinks
person
like
be
that? How
good?
many people really think, well, that by doing wonderful, kind, decent, humanistic things here, they're going to be rewarded in the world? They don't really. I use that example more as they're struggling with that they endure their struggles more because this is the only world. But I've never actually come across anyone who consciously goes about doing wonderful things now because there's an expectation in the world to come.
Okay. I've certainly met people who do, who their whole impetus for doing good in this world is to be rewarded in the next. That's it. And that's not just when it gets tough, they remind themselves that that's the whole purpose. The whole goal is to go somewhere else. And if you want a ticket to heaven, so you got to do the right things here, and that's the whole inspiration.
Why can't I just be good to be good?
Right, that's the question. Just be good to be good, and forget what the next world is about.
It's all believe is a future inside the world. Because we give some night.
Could be.
Looking for a reward or just good people.
So then leave out the next world in
You can
time.
have good,
What do you need a heaven for?
atheists and good people, and you can have religious people who aren't good people.
So what's the secret of being good?
They're human. Last week you talked about animals having purpose, and it's not purpose, it's alive, the animals. Whatever you do, yours is alive.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, does it really matter why somebody is good?
Probably not, but we want to know what's the best way to get there. What's the best way to be a good person? Is the belief in heaven, in another world, in some higher purpose, is that going to help us become good or hinder us from becoming good?
Doesn't it depend on what we think being good is? Because having belief in a higher world could lead us to a very different path of goodness to someone who's living a good life with no purpose. Purposefully without purpose, but they're doing the best they can to live what they believe is a good life.
Yeah.
So they feel like they're being good to themselves because they're respecting their own wishes all the time or something.
Right.
It might hinder you being bad.
To know that there's an afterlife. Right. Like a child in kindergarten who might not misbehave because they're going to get sent to the corner and miss out on dessert. Yeah, but it's not a very high ideal. This question, it's an interesting one, and it's one that's bothered me. That is this idea of a purpose going to make you better or worse? And this argument that perhaps our purpose should just be nothing but here and now. This is what it's all about. And religion gets it wrong by saying our purpose is something higher than here and now, because that makes you less respectful of this world. It's a fascinating argument. When I first heard it, I had a hunch that the argument had truth to it, but it didn't apply to the Jewish view of purpose, and certainly the Kabbalistic view of purpose, it didn't really fit. That maybe there are some forms of spirituality, some religions, that this argument is true, that the preoccupation with a purpose, a higher purpose, can actually make you negligent of this world. But I felt that it didn't really work for Judaism, and I thought that the Jewish and the Kabbalistic perspective, the Jewish mystical perspective of things, may answer this question in a very different way. And so a few years back, I wanted to test this theory. What I did is I sent a bunch of emails to different religious thinkers, not famous people, but just people who represented a religion or a spiritual path, asking the question, what in their faith is the purpose of life? What are we here to do? Why are we in this world? And I wanted to get the answers from different angles to see what different people would say from these various spiritual perspectives. What is the purpose of life? But I wanted to do this in a way that was incognito, like anonymously. I didn't want it to come from a rabbi asking different religions, because I thought that might be seen as confrontational or questioning, or, what do you need to know this? I didn't want to do it from that angle. I wanted to do it anonymously. Problem was, my email address is Rabbi Moss at this and that. I have a few email addresses with all Rabbi Moss, and that sort of gives away to many people where I'm coming from. And so I didn't want the question to be presented as from anyone in particular. I just wanted to be a person out of the blue asking this question, not a rabbi. So for these type of purposes, like many people, I do have a pseudonym, like a separate email account that I'm sure many of you have for various reasons.
Not
and this one was with just a fake name and a different. It was an email account from a different country, and it's what I use every now and then when I want to be anonymous and not known, who I'm speaking to. Sometimes I've responded to some of the Nigerian scams through this email. I've had fantastic conversations with some of these people, amazing stuff. One day I'll publish that as well. And so, anyway, I use this particular account with a very, very nondescript name, and I emailed from this person asking various religious people from around the world this question. Here on the screen, I have for you the wording of my question that I sent around. I wrote, "Hello. Could you explain in a couple of lines, what does your religion see as the mission of its own members? In other words, what is life's highest ideal? What are you here for? I know this is a huge question, but a short answer is all I need. Thank you for your time." Signed it by the name. I don't want to say the name just in case I might use it.
Yeah.
or you might know me. So that was the question. I kept it simple in words, but it's a very obviously profound question. It's something that books could be written on the topic. But according to your religion, what do you see, the people in your religion, what is their mission in this world? According to you, what's life's highest ideal? What are we trying to achieve in this world? What is the purpose of life, basically, according to your religion? And I sent this around. I can't remember how many different places, people I sent it to, but I got quite a few responses. And so what I want to do with you tonight is share those responses that I received and go through them and analyze them and see in each one, will their life philosophy make you a better person? The basic question. Will this make you a better person? And also, will it stand up to the test of the question, the atheist question that I mentioned earlier, and that is that having this purpose, does this not somehow make you respect this world less? So let's have a look. This was the answer that I received from a Buddhist. Now, before you read it, I just want to say that this is not a comparative religion class. And I'm not an expert in all these religions, and not in any way attempting to say that the people who answered them are the authority on their religions. These are just people who teach their religion, and their accuracy may or may not, be up to standard. And our analysis of it also is not an expert analysis. It's just this is a layman discussion. So This is what the Buddhists responded to me. The purpose of Buddhism is to overcome human psychological suffering, and 2, by investigating the nature of the mind through empirical observation, awaken to the true nature of oneself. Nice? Not bad in 5 lines to summarize the purpose of life from the perspective of Buddhism, which basically he seems to be saying, this particular person, that overcome suffering, human psychological suffering, and through investigating the nature of the mind, through meditation, and through deeper insight, to awaken to the true nature of oneself. Okay. So, how does that stand up to our test? Will this philosophy make you a better person if you live by this?
Possibly, probably.
Not really.
No.
It's
No.
very inward. It's all about.
It's all about them.
Yeah, but if your nature is good
Nature is
and
right.
you're trying to evoke that, then it would make you good.
I mean, without getting into that, what it really is about finding what's called your Buddha nature, your inner nature, and your outer nature. Inner nature is based on kindness, loving kindness, compassion, generosity, gratitude, all those things we talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the assumption here we would hope is that your true nature is good. Right? We're not saying you're trying to discover your inner villain. Right? It's that some of your true inner nature is good, and by investigating that, and the point of this is, what is the point? What is the aim of all this?
To awaken it.
Human psychological suffering. Human suffering, really, I suppose.
Why did they put the word psychological there?
I think what it means is that it's the experience of suffering.
Like it's only because of our psychology. Like we
bad
create
things
it.
happen to you, but you experience it as suffering that's
Suffering.
your experience. So
Right.
you have to overcome that.
Right.
You can't stop what happens to you. But
Right.
I assume that's what
See the good in it.
I guess so. So
But sorry, I don't want to. Buddhism really classified as a religion?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which one is the spiritual part.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I don't know.
It is classified as
So this answer is saying the purpose of life, if you're adhering to this guy's Buddhism, at least, what is the purpose of life? What are we here to do? What are we supposed to achieve? At least from what he's saying, we're supposed to achieve freedom from suffering and finding our true self. He doesn't say here that part of the purpose of life is to become a better person. He doesn't mention that. It could be because he didn't have time, or in summary. But you could interpret this as, of course, to be a better person, or to find yourself, to not suffer. Not suffering is good. Why? Because
Suffering is not good.
suffering is not good. So to get over suffering is, so we're put in the world to not suffer, to get over suffering that there is in this world. So there is suffering here, but we're trying to
But it's internal suffering, and it's all
Be above
about
it.
self. It's all about self.
I
It's
don't-
not how it's all reflected on the world. It's all about inner.
Why? It's not talking about your own. It's talking about human psychological suffering. I don't really think it's so simple as to say just to not suffer because suffering's bad. I see that as a very strong mechanism to lift up suffering, but not necessarily only your own. And once you know how to do that, it's possible that you can then have an effect.
yeah.
The first half is external to yourself, and the second half is internal.
Why is it
It's
external? It's inside.
The
Overcoming
purpose of what it is
your
to overcome suffering and
it's not to stop suffering in the world. It's not to stop other people suffering. It's to overcome your
it doesn't say that.
suffering.
To me, it says there's two purposes. There's the first part and there's the second part.
So probably this guy didn't ever learn Talmud, and we're tearing it apart like a Talmudic text. And, we have to be careful. He didn't know why this weird person was emailing him. So we do have to take it with a grain of salt. And of course, Buddhism is an ancient philosophy that has a lot of depth to it. We can't attempt to grasp it from here. But could a person reading this, follow this, and become a worse person? Would it be possible?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
I read that and I understand that as being true to oneself.
Right, but some people are misguided by what that is.
But if you do follow Buddhism, just as you follow Judaism, you do it under guidance.
Right.
And if you follow Buddhism, from what I see there, and from what I understand, what I've read, it's always under guidance, just the same as Judaism is. And if I have a problem or I can't figure something out, I'll come to you and I'll come and talk to you about it. Or you'll give guidance all the time. That's why we are here today.
Yep. Yes.
And I think that Buddhism is also under guidance. Somebody's there that understands it more and better and so on. And also understands the suffering of human nature.
Yeah.
And we make such a big deal out of so many things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a big thing.
Mm-hmm. So I think what we can all agree on, whether we're knowledgeable in this or not, is that there's some depth here. There's a deep view here, and there's definitely some valuable lesson in there. And it's not simplistic. There's something powerful in this lesson. And let's leave it at that. The next response I got was from a Muslim. Now again, which Muslim is this, and who does he represent? Nobody. But this is what he said. Our purpose in life is to recognize our Creator, to be grateful to our Creator, to worship the Creator, to surrender ourselves to our Creator, and to obey the laws that He has determined for us. In a nutshell, it means worship. This is our purpose in this life, and whatever we do in the cause of this worship, i.e. the system, eating, drinking, working, dressing, sleeping, the enjoying between life and death, all of these are just consequential, but we have been created for worship. That is the purpose of our life.
I think this one is, I would think, is very similar to the Judaism, and the Buddhist one seems, from the statement before, seems to be very self-centered and only worrying about yourself, whereas this one is yourself in relation to something bigger.
Yeah, well, this one would be the exact opposite of self. There's very little self.
It's all our
involved here.
It's all about us and
this is about worship, service.
This would prove what the atheists, in terms of having a purpose, would negate this world. This totally proves that, because everything is just consequential.
What does he mean by that? What does it mean everything's consequential? What is consequential?
It just doesn't matter as much. It's all for that.
So he calls it the system here: eating, drinking, working, dressing, sleeping. So basically, all our mundane life, our everyday life, is just consequential. Which I think what he means by that is completely secondary. It's like that doesn't have any innate meaning. You have to sleep because you have to worship, and if you don't sleep, you'll be too tired to worship. So there's nothing about sleep that has anything to it. We just have to do that because we're in this world. We're just here to serve the Creator, surrender ourselves to Him, obey the laws that He's determined for us.
I'm surprised you use the word drinking then. Because that
Drinking water. Eating, drinking. No.
No, that's Jewish people.
To survive, you need to drink.
That's looking into it. That's really
Bit of a stretch.
It doesn't seem to me that he says sleep to worship, though. I think, for me, it just reads as sleep to sleep.
It just doesn't matter. Like you have to sleep,
yeah.
you sleep.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's just
Well,
life,
that
isn't it?
seems to, I know it sounds weird, but that seems to endorse what the atheist is saying, because there's no recognition of anything afterwards. It's just what we do today and forget about everything else. To obey the laws that He has determined for us. That's it. That's all we've got to do. We don't have to worry about anything else. We don't have to worry about an afterlife. We don't have to worry about, just again, from one little grab of a religion.
And we
But
don't need
it
to...
doesn't seem to be an extended purpose. It's just about here and now.
Yeah.
Well, about here and now, about worship. The question, remember, was, what's our purpose in this world?
Yeah.
So he's explaining
nothing
what are we
about
supposed to
this
do in this
world.
world.
But there
And
is nothing
his
about
answer
this
is that this world, as far as this world is concerned, is not important. It's about worshipping God,
That's consequential.
and that's it. And everything else is just by the by. You do it if you have to do it. Doesn't have any meaning. So what would this be a recipe to be a good person? Better than not having this philosophy? Worse?
It depends what the Creator said to do.
Isn't something that makes it more meaningful.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably the line that we'd have to learn more about, to obey the laws that He has determined for us.
Yeah.
So if that's all, if basically what life is all about is completely ignoring yourself, not finding your true self. We're not interested in your true self. We're not interested in you at all. We're interested in the Creator and serving the Creator. If that's what it's about, completely nullifying, losing, surrendering yourself to the Creator. So the question is, so what does He say? What does this Creator tell us to do? If they're good laws, so things will be good. If they're not all that good, then we're in big trouble.
Infidels.
But at least you would achieve, you would have total humility. You basically did this. You'd be a much more refined person from a humility point of view, whether what you end up carrying out whatever those laws are, whatever they are. But in terms of humility, you'd have to be much better.
Well, it depends what the laws are. If a law says you should be arrogant, then maybe that's one of the laws, you know what I mean? It really totally depends on what these laws are. So we can't really know much about the result of this just from reading this little one paragraph.
But the realistic situation, if the whole purpose of your existence is worshipping, and somebody is next to you in trouble, but you're there to worship, so you can't just get distracted and help somebody else. You just have
Unless
to
the law
concentrate on...
says to.
unless like specifically, but does it?
Yeah. The indication here is laws. By laws, it's talking about very much between us and the Creator.
Yeah.
Not so much between us and our fellow person. And definitely, one thing's clear is whatever the laws do say, which we don't know, but we do know that the laws do not care really about the eating, drinking, working, dressing, sleeping, the everyday, mundane, this world. It just doesn't really matter. It's about another world.
Well, the laws,
that's definitely
the laws
the aim.
could deal with the relationships on earth.
Could be
laws of charity, like we have.
Absolutely.
Some religions.
But not these things. Not eating, drinking, working.
They're secondary to.
Yeah. Even if there are laws about what you can and can't eat, but that's not because the eating is something. It's because the law is something.
According to this.
Yes. We're just
But
quoting
it
this
doesn't,
country.
it doesn't say it's inconsequential, it says it's just consequential. So it's not saying that it's not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think the grammar again, it's not the Talmudic text, so I think just from the thing is saying that all these are just consequential, maybe meant inconsequential. But we have been created for worship. We're here for worship, we're not here for anything else. That's what it seems. So
It's really to understand it, you need to know the laws.
absolutely. But if we would put an arrow to each one of these presentations, if we put an arrow, where is it pointing? In which direction is it pointing? Who is this pointing at? The first one, the Buddhist one, was very much pointing inwards, finding this inner thing. This one is very much pointing outwards to the Creator, to God. So just to simplify it, the Buddhist one is pointing inwards, this is pointing upwards to God. And so therefore, our atheist reading this could say, well, such a person, unless these laws are very humane, this person is not going to care at all about this world. Because it's all about going to the Creator. Bahai is, I think the only reason many of us would have heard of them is because their center is in Israel, in Haifa. It's an interesting sect. Not much known about it because they don't publicize much about themselves. But they're originally from Iran, and they were persecuted in Iran, and so they moved to Israel, to Haifa, many, many years ago, and that's where they found religious freedom and tolerance. So,
But they were a formed religion out of Judaism, Christianity and Islam.
yeah, a much later.
It was a concocted one. If you go to the Bahai Centre, it's got the founder who died not that long ago, really.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So this is
so
not,
you
it's not an
know
ancient,
exactly when it started.
yeah, it's not an ancient religion. It's an offshoot of.
So where do they, sorry, this is the religious, where do they draw their teachings of God from if they're neither fish nor fowl?
I think from all over. Let's see what this guy said. Again, I don't know who this person is, what authority he's speaking on. That picture is not. So that is a Bahai person. Maybe that's the founder. I don't know. So this is what he said. What is our purpose in life? To know and love God and each other is basically what the Bahai mission is. Baha'is do this by following the teachings of God for this age, which call for the renewal of morality, which include a set of social laws such as the abandonment of prejudices injurious to the common weal. I don't know what weal means. I couldn't find the meaning of that word, but it means, yeah. Baha'is strive to work at that which will help the material and spiritual progress of humanity.
I love it.
Lovely.
So, where does this one point?
In and out.
Everywhere.
In and out.
But only for this age.
Listen, to be honest, I'm not really sure what. There's not a lot of concrete statement here. It's a little more open-ended, this one. To know and love God and each other. Nice. Can't hurt. Following teachings of God for this age. Okay, we'll have to. We need to know where that comes from. The renewal of morality. Okay, which include a set of social laws such as the abandonment of prejudices, injurious to the common weal. So that definitely sounds pretty postmodern. Like that doesn't sound like the wording there sounds like very new. Yeah, very new, very in fashion type of stuff.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit like just this particular guy sounds like it's sort of whatever is going, like whatever's around, whatever's in fashion. You know, the teachings of God for this age sounds like sort of going with the flow a little bit of whatever's popular. A little bit. That's what it sounds like. Just to work at that which will help the material and spiritual progress of humanity. Right? I mean, that's wonderful. Just what is that? Like, you know, we can't know from here. And we can't know from here, do they have an answer to these questions, or it's just like, you know, whatever's in vogue. It's a little bit tough to put your finger on this one, I find. So if we would say what would the atheist say to this one? Is there anything here that atheists would disagree with?
God.
The impact of God.
There's no
So if you would take out the word God from this, if you would remove the word God, to know and love each other, fine. Following the teachings of this age, not of God, follow the teachings of the age, which call for renewal of morality. Well, renewal of morality, like the new type of morality, sounds okay. Social laws, abandon prejudices, that's all very acceptable. That's the 10 Commandments of atheism.
Yeah.
But they're giving you no guidance. It's wrong.
There's nothing there. If you would take out God as the source, I don't think there's anything there that would be particularly offensive to an atheist. This is beautiful. This is good stuff. Which is a bit of a worry for a religion. but again, this is only this particular person talking. He's not necessarily representative. But yeah, that's what it seems. So arrow-wise, we're not judging this religion, by the way. We're just saying what this particular guy said is the arrows are going all over the place. They're not really any particular direction. Sort of whatever's going. It's very hard to pin this one down either.
Is that a religion? Is it a mission or a purpose? Use the word mission.
The Bahai mission. Yeah.
Is it a mission or a purpose?
Oh, Rabbi wants to ask. The original question was, what is the people's mission?
Yeah. What's the mission? What do you need to do?
When you see the arrows going downwards and upwards, it's amongst fellow to fellow, and we're talking about God and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. There's probably enough there to suggest that.
Yeah. So sorry, outwards
And upwards.
Outwards and upwards. Yeah. Material spiritual progress of humanity. Yeah.
This is more humanity driven than probably the other two.
Yeah. 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 So like it's a humanism with God there.
The teachings of God for this age.
Yeah.
Whose teachings?
There's not, but to say it's outwards, it's neither inwards nor outwards. This one. It's not telling you have to lose yourself or find yourself.
No, but it does say each other, which is outwards.
But to know and love God and each other, like that's for me to know and love you. You know, like I'm there as well.
But then it's inwards
not
and outwards.
just about you.
There definitely seems to be a philanthropic thread going through that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's hard to find anything wrong with this.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could say anything, unless you don't like God, and want to take that word out. There's no one who could really argue with this, which is interesting. Anyway, that's the Bahai. Now a Catholic. Now, okay, so this is what this person did. And these are unedited, by the way. This is what they wrote. The Catholic Church is comprised of 3 levels of her members. The Church Triumphant, those who by God's favour and their own efforts to align their wills with God's will for a lifetime have reached heaven. The Church Suffering, those who have been saved but are being purified for union with God in heaven. And the Church Militant, all of us here on earth who are struggling to align our wills with God's will, which is nothing short of living a life of grace. Our mission as members of the one true Church is to reach the heaven for which we were made and to help others do the same thing. This is not just the mission of the Catholics, it is the mission of the entire human race. God bless you. Which was nice, he ended with a blessing. Okay, so just to save you time, it's a bit wordy this one to figure out what he's talking about. But basically it talks about 3 categories of people. There are people who are in heaven already. They've done what they needed to do on earth and they're in heaven. And they're...
Is that physically?
No. They're dead and their
Right.
soul dead. Then there's people who are suffering, meaning they're being punished in purgatory or whatever. They're not in heaven yet. They'll get there maybe one day, but they're not there at the moment. They're suffering in hell. And then there's people down here in this world who are struggling to reach heaven. And that is what we're here to do. To reach the heaven for which we were made. And help others do the same. That's it. That's what we're all here to do.
Atheists would love this.
Right?
That proves his point, essentially.
Yeah. Well, because why?
Because our purpose is, let me get the words right, is to reach the heaven for which we were made. In other words, everything else is inconsequential.
Right. So again, the question will be how you get to heaven. What do they believe you need to do to get to heaven? That will make a difference. If getting to heaven means doing good things, so then that's good. But certainly, clearly, it's just about getting to heaven. It's not about anything else. Like it's about getting to heaven and trying to bring other people there as well. That's what it's all about. The arrows are pointing upwards for sure, and outwards to a higher place.
But it's also just about you. Actually, no, it's about the whole human race.
And in Bahai.
Yeah, you're there for you to get to heaven and to take as many people with you as possible. And basically, the implication is that if you don't do this, if you don't believe in this, then you're going to be the suffering ones that are not going to heaven.
What it doesn't reveal, maybe I'm missing, is what you have to do.
Right.
You have to.
Yeah, none of them they didn't have a chance to put out the whole. This was really just the email exchange. But my point is just to see where it's pointing. What's the direction of this philosophy? It's definitely outwards. Okay, a Hindu. I believe you have misconceived Hinduism as a religion, as purposeful activity. What is the purpose of breath or prana? There is no purpose except continuation of life. Similarly, Hinduism is prana of the divine energy. Once you've understood the prana, you have actually understood Hinduism. Okay, that requires further study, what that means. This is not the place for it. This is for sure. But the point that this person was trying to make very, very strongly is that we're not about purpose in the first place. Like the assumption, which is very much our assumption, and it may be a very Jewish assumption, is that, well, you're a religion that has purpose. Okay, who says we're a religion? Who says there's purpose? And who says there should be purpose? And that's not the point. Is there a purpose of breath? You know, like you breathe. Like it's just something you do. It's not purposeful at all. And so he seems to be saying that there's no arrow whatsoever, not inwards or outwards, up or down. We're not going anywhere. There's not about purpose at all. What would our atheists say about this? I don't know. I mean, at least he's not talking about heaven. You know, that's good. But is he talking about earth? Like, if there's no purpose? Maybe not. It's that one requires further study, I think.
And more drugs.
This was from an evangelical Christian, so it's a different school to the Catholics. And he said the following: as a born-again Christian, my mission is to serve as an ambassador and witness for the Son of God. Go into all the world and preach the good news to all creation. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved, but whoever does not believe will be condemned. Which is a quote from their Bible. So there, he was pretty straightforward about it, that believe and you'll be saved. You don't believe and you'll be condemned.
But he doesn't say in which world.
Well, saved means...
we know.
Go to heaven.
Yeah, means going to heaven. Condemned means
Stuck in life.
going downwards. So he was pretty clear about it. That's what it is. What do you need to go to heaven? What do you need to do to go to heaven?
Preach the good news.
Just believe and be baptized. That's it. There's nothing else required here. Believe, you'll be saved. Does not believe, you'll be condemned. So it doesn't really matter
About practice.
anything else. It's all about belief, faith, accepting a belief, and you go to heaven. Don't, and you're in trouble. So this our atheist would go to town on this one. Look, this person says you could do whatever you want. You know, there were Nazis who were big believers, and so where are they now? And they're victims who are not believers. Where are they? According to this, it's pretty stark, that one.
You could interpret belief in this as a much broader, in that believe means also follow the teachings and guidance, like you did on a few earlier slides.
Well, no, the other one said follow the laws.
Yeah,
this is not talking about laws, this is talking about belief.
But if you believe that Jesus is the Son of God, you also believe that you should follow what he says.
Yeah,
No,
but this quote doesn't.
there,
This quote, belief and
extend that.
acts. It's called belief and doing are different realms. So here, the arrows are pointing completely out of this world. There's no indication that there's anything much we need to do other than believe to go to heaven.
Sorry, is it common knowledge that saved and condemned is referring to heaven and life?
Okay, this was a Wiccan.
What's a Wiccan?
It's someone who believes in black magic, witchery, and that type of stuff.
Wow.
So,
Where did you find these
okay, the
people?
picture is doesn't illustrate. It's the best I could do.
You Google Wiccan and find an address or what?
No, I found online somebody who answers questions about this stuff. Okay, so let's have a look. Within my spiritual understanding, I recognize the divinity within and strive to live a life that is worthy of goddesshood. So she's the goddess, not worshipping goddess. She is the goddess. I understand the importance of remaining an individual and not allowing myself to be led by the crowd. I accept that a person is solely responsible for her own actions, and there is no external salvation from the results of those actions. I accept that the forces of the universe can be bent to one's personal will, which is magic, with a K, and that magic is based on natural laws and works in accordance with the scientific principles that cannot yet be explained. And finally, I accept the understanding that we are all interconnected to and an inseparable part of this earth. So this is it's actually like a pagan religion that is saying quite clearly that we are God. Like, I've got to be the goddess, not worshipping a God that's higher than me. I am the God, and there's no external salvation from my actions. I'm responsible for what I do, and it's not going to take me anywhere. It's just
No salvation.
It's just here and now, and the spiritual. There's magic, which is spiritual powers that are really natural laws that we don't understand yet, and you can use them. And that, witchcraft, etc. And we're all interconnected and a part of the earth, which is sort of classic paganism, actually, that predates all the other religions. Earth worship, nature worship, that type of thing. So here the arrows are pointing. Well, if you're the goddess, I guess it's your responsibility.
And also to the earth, which would be down.
Right, and we're connected and part of the earth, so
Each to their own.
yeah, don't follow the crowd. It's quite self-contained. Doesn't necessarily talk about being good or nice or anything like that. I'm goddess, and that's it.
Most atheists would warm to the scientific principles bit in the story, because that's their whole argument against the principles of religion.
Right, but they might not appreciate saying that magic is really based on scientific principles that we just don't understand yet. That, I don't know if every atheist would go for that bit. So this is quite an inward, earthy self-worship in a way. I asked a Reform rabbi as well on a forum, just so someone who's Jewish but from the Reform tradition, so therefore they're not representing traditional Torah sources, and I got a 2-line answer: love God and doing good deeds. Right, the mission of the world is love God and doing good deeds, which is called Tikkun Olam, repair of the world. Okay, I mean it's only a 2-liner. Love God and doing good deeds. What would our atheists say?
Why do you need to love God? Just do the good deeds.
Yeah.
Skip out that part, but the other part is fine. The direction this one points.
Both ways.
Outward, upward, down. Love God, do good deeds. Repair the world. Okay, and this Tikkun Olam is a concept that is from Jewish sources. Tikkun Olam means to correct the world, to repair the world. In some non-orthodox strands, it's understood as just social justice. Fighting for good causes and that type of thing. To repair the world to be what is left a bit open-ended. But it's from an authentic Jewish source, and that is that we're here to repair the world, to make the world better. This was explained a bit further by the last one I asked, and that was a Hasidic rabbi. A Hasidic rabbi I asked didn't know who I was, and that I was also a Hasidic rabbi. So he explained to me this, that what is our mission? To make this world a place where God would dwell openly. This is accomplished by bringing Him into the world through acts of goodness and kindness and following the precepts of the Torah.
It's almost like the Reform rabbi, but just in more words, essentially. Love God, do good deeds. It's adding.
Except that
sources.
but it's saying bring God into this world as well.
No.
Well,
And follow the Torah.
It's not bringing him.
No, it says bring him into the world.
Oh, okay.
Also, it's following the precepts of the Torah, which wasn't mentioned before.
Right. This is taking a step further. And I think what this rabbi did, and anyone trained in Hasidic philosophy would have said this answer, this in similar words, is that he's added something here which actually profoundly turns the entire thing on its head. That traditionally, what we expect from any of these answers is either we're here to make this world good, this worldly, concentrate on the here and now, or to go to the next world, to go somewhere else. The arrows are either pointing upwards or inwards, and it can only be one or the other. What this philosophy is introducing is a different twist that is subtle but completely revolutionary. And that is that our mission is to make this world heavenly. To bring heaven down to this world on earth. Bringing God into this world. It's not about going up to God, leaving this world to get to God somewhere. But it's actually by bringing God into this world, making this world a place where God would dwell openly. Meaning that the world as it is created is not a place that is innately divine or good. There is evil in the world. There are aspects to this world that are alien, that are foreign to God, that need to be changed and worked on. The world needs to be refined to make this world a place where God would dwell openly. And so, how do we change it? How do we bring Him into the world? How do we bring God down into this world? By doing acts of goodness and kindness and following the precepts of the Torah as divinely ordained. So, what this means is that our purpose in this world is not to escape this world and to go to a better world, to go to heaven. Heaven's not mentioned here at all as far as a place to go. It's not even described as our destiny. At the same time, it's not about this world to just enjoy this world or just make the most of this world. It's about bringing God into this world, meaning making this world a refined place, a place where God would feel comfortable. And that's done through acts of goodness and kindness and following the directives of the Torah. Because one thing that you can say about everything in the Torah is that everything in the Torah is about doing something spiritual within the physical. That there's nothing in Torah that is escapist, that is about going away to a higher place. It's all about bringing the divine, bringing the energy down here. And so the arrows are very much pointing downwards, but not downwards and inwards, not into self, but into making this world a heavenly place, elevating it to the status of heaven. And so what this rabbi did is within just a couple of lines has actually introduced a philosophy that is not found anywhere else. None of the others indicated any of this. There is the idea of being a good person, of making the world a better place, but making it a divine place, making it a home for God, making this heaven should be down here on earth. That is something that's completely revolutionary, and that's a Kabbalistic idea. That's something that the Hasidic and Kabbalistic schools introduced and emphasized as being the center of our mission.
So wouldn't the atheists like that?
So what would the atheists say to this? They wouldn't like the God part either. That's for sure. But what they could not argue is that this makes you disrespect this world. You couldn't say that as well, that this makes you ignore this world. Unlike some of the early ones that are all about going to heaven, or all about nullifying yourself to the Creator and ignoring this world. This one is saying that you have to bring it down into this world. You have to bring godliness into this world. It's all about this world. The whole focus, the whole reason our soul came down was to be here, not to go up there. The arena of achievement in our lives, the place where our purpose is here, is the here and now. But what is our purpose? To make the here and now a divine, godly place. So unlike, for example, our Muslim friend who said that sleeping and eating and working and drinking, these things are consequential or inconsequential or whatever he meant, this is saying, no, that's very important. In fact, that's the whole focus. How you eat, how you drink, how you work, will determine how you make this world into a divine place, a holy place. Going to a house of worship and being moral is not bringing God into the world. Going to work and being moral, that is how you bring God into the world. The way you interact with the physical world, that is going to determine how much godliness there is in the world. And so it's very much a part of the focus is the here and now, your interrelation with this world. it's not about going to heaven, but it's about making this world heaven. And so I think that this perspective, it challenges us to, on the one hand, understand that this world is not how it's supposed to be. That things are not as they're supposed to be. This is a world that is not yet a place where God can dwell openly. It's not yet a perfect world. It wasn't created perfect. Our mission is to make it perfect. But at the same time, to understand that this is not just a stepping stone to somewhere else. This world is not just a pathway to go somewhere else, but this world is actually the focus of our mission. This is what it's all about. And so I think this view of things actually revolutionizes the entire view of spirituality. That most philosophies will either be materialist, meaning it's just about this world and there's nothing else, or spiritualist, which means that this world is nothing, it's about the next world, and that's where we've got to be. What this philosophy is, it's not materialist, it's not spiritualist, it's divine, it's godly. God is not physical, God is also not spiritual. God is infinite and all-powerful, and therefore He can transcend both physical and spiritual. Meaning that He can make this world, or He can allow this world to become a spiritual home. A physical world can become a spiritual home. The two can come together. And that's the challenge that Kabbalah gives us. And that is basically, in a nutshell, every person's mission in life. Is to try and make a godly world, a heaven on earth. Okay. I'll open up to questions or comments. Yeah.
Would another rabbi who is not Hasidic, do we know what they would say, if there would be a difference?
I didn't get any responses from any.
You asked them?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I mean, I could get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like at that particular time when I did this project, I didn't get. Would a non-Hasidic rabbi answer the same as this? I don't think this wording is almost paraphrasing a teaching from the book of Tanya, which is a Hasidic work. And so somebody who hasn't studied that would say something similar to this, doing good deeds, correcting the world. So it is about this world. But probably could possibly say that ultimately this world is just an introduction to a higher world. The idea that this world is what it's all about, this is the focus, that's a Kabbalistic and a Hasidic idea.
It's interesting.
Did you ask an atheist?
No.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, maybe another study next time. Yeah, question.
Rabbi?
Yeah, go.
So, you know, we see that story of Hillel when the guy said, you know, he teaches the Torah, spares anyone, they whatever, and said that was to teach, love your fellows yourself, and something like that. So how does that, is there a different, they're coming together, or it's a different...
Okay, so the question is that there's a story that the Talmud records of a certain non-Jew who wanted to convert to Judaism. And he came to a rabbi saying that, I want to convert to Judaism, but only if you'll teach me the entire Torah standing on one foot. In other words, he didn't want long lectures, he just wanted a summary of what the Torah is all about. And so the rabbi told him, what's hateful to you, don't do it to others. That's the entire Torah. The rest is all commentary, so go and learn the commentary. So is that summarizing the same thing? So, in a way it is. Because what he's saying is, how can you say that the entire Torah is a means of loving your fellow? What his statement was that if you love your fellow as yourself, that's the entire Torah. Everything else in the Torah is just a means, a way, a commentary to do that. Well, loving your fellow as yourself is an interpersonal law, but the Torah is full of laws that are between us and God that have nothing to do with another human being. There's many laws in the Torah that don't seem to enhance our love for a fellow human being. Why would keeping the laws of Shabbos or keeping kosher be a commentary on loving your fellow as yourself? There seems to be no connection. So the explanation given in Hasidic writings is that how can you love your fellow as yourself? How's it possible to love your fellow as yourself? You can't love your fellow as yourself as long as you look at a person externally. As long as I look at another person from the superficial view and I see their external self, I may love them or may not love them. But even if I do love them, it's not going to be like myself, because I love myself internally, whereas they are an external being. But if I look at things on a deeper level, if I see them not as just a body but also a soul, I see the divine spark behind a person, I will naturally love them as myself. Because they have a divine spark just like I have a divine spark, and we're all one. We actually are one. So just like I love myself, I love another person. The only way to come to that is by being in tune to the divine reality that is within the body. And so, therefore, when the teacher, whose name was Hillel, when he said, what's hateful to you, don't do to others, that's the entire Torah. Everything else is commentary. What he meant was, everything else in the Torah is teaching you how to love a fellow as yourself. The spiritual laws of the Torah, the things we need to do like Shabbos and kosher, anything like that, all of them can be summarized as finding godliness down here in this world. Finding the divine spark within this physical world. In the way you eat, in the way you spend your leisure time, in the way you do your business. All those laws are to find godliness down here in this world. The more you attune yourself with that way of looking at things, the more you'll naturally love your fellow as yourself. And so, it's the same idea. Finding the godliness down here in this world. That bringing the heaven down to earth is actually it's the same theme that is going through the whole thing. That the person in front of you is divine, has a divine spark. They're not just a potential heaven goer, but they're a person down here in this world that is divine and therefore lovable. So the arrows are also pointing very much down here in that teaching as well.
Has the thinkers of today's time, the Jewish thinkers of today's time, in the last 50 years, developed a strong argument against the atheists who raise evolution and archaeological findings? Have they developed an argument against that? Or is it a case of, look, we don't want to argue that because that's what you want to believe, this is what we want to believe?
I mean, that's deserving of a lecture series. But in summary, Judaism does not see science or scientific study as being a contradiction to religion.
The atheists
right, but Judaism doesn't. The attitude that science and religion are contradictory and can't work together is not a Jewish one. And Jewish sages, not just the last 50 years, but the last 3,000 years, have always encouraged studying the world and getting to know it. And we believe the more you do that, the more you'll find God, the more you study the universe. The fact that there are some things that seem to be contradictory between Torah and science, we believe that can only be a misunderstanding of one or the other. Either the science has been misunderstood or the Torah has been misunderstood, and ultimately there can be no contradiction. And so if something is scientifically proven and there's something in the Torah that seems to contradict that, so then we need to look deeper into both of them. And eventually we'll find that they do come together.
Can you please schedule a lecture series on that?
Okay, sure. I don't usually do requests, but if somebody asks me, I do. Okay.
If this mission seems to be the most legitimate, having heard what you just said, why is it one of the smallest religions? Why haven't the other religions cottoned on to this idea and sort of embraced it? And why doesn't Judaism then go out and teach it to other people and actually encourage this type of thinking?
Okay. Well, the fact that something is not popular does not make it any less true. In fact, sometimes the contrary is the fact that the truth is unpopular or doesn't catch on or is not, it doesn't become big, it doesn't hit it big. So it's not like, if this is so powerful, so why doesn't everyone believe it? Because this world is the world of falsehood and people believe other things. But the second question sort of answers the first question as well. The reason we don't try and spread it, in a way we do. We do try and spread this by living a life that exemplifies these ideals, that's how we spread it. We don't missionize in that we don't see that we should convert the world to Judaism. That's not our belief. We don't believe everyone has to be Jewish, and you don't have to be Jewish to participate in God's scheme in the world. And so that's why we don't missionize. But the idea that we don't spread the idea of God wanting this world to be a moral good place, that is a part of the Jewish mission. The problem is, we haven't really had the opportunity for most of our history to convey that message. Because for most of the history of the Jewish people, our interaction with our non-Jewish surroundings has not been a positive one. And today it's different. Today I think we're in a very different time. We're in a time when the Jewish voice actually is sought out to be heard. And the Jewish opinion on things is listened to, I believe, today more than ever. It just has to be put out there. It has to be conveyed. Unfortunately, the messengers of the Jewish message are not all that well informed these days. So while the irony is that throughout most of Jewish history, most Jews were well educated in what Judaism was about, and no one wanted to listen to them. Now, most Jews are not educated in the Jewish message, and everyone wants to hear what we have to say. So in our small way, every person can help this. First of all, we're becoming educated in what is the uniquely Jewish message. Like here tonight, we presented that there are a lot of philosophies out there, a lot of spiritual messages out there, a lot of ideals and religions. We have a very powerful one. We have an amazing message that's uniquely ours. So first, we all have to become well educated and know that very strongly. And then by living it, just by living it, not by preaching it, by living it, so then there's no better way to get that message out than that. Okay, we're going to stop there. I'm happy to take more questions if anyone wants to hang around, and God willing, next week we'll continue.